It could be the worst way to die.
The death is painful and prolonged.
Instant execution.
He was dead before he hit the floor.
A tool of spies and secret agents.
I was a KGB officer, a military officer. I had to obey orders.
A medieval weapon.
Poison means secret. Bullet, it's impossible for bullet to be secret.
In the present day, in Moscow, in Kiev, even in London, people are being poisoned.
Of course, we see only the top of iceberg.
The new Russian billionaires are the richest men in the world. Men like Roman Abramovich moved to London. Here they can buy what they like, even Chelsea Football Club. But why do they come? They're here because they feel safe. Russia is dangerous. Even the richest man in the country can be arrested and thrown in prison. His crime? To get interested in politics. But London isn't safe either. Every football ground Abramovich visits has its escape route checked. He travels by armored car. His daughters have bodyguards. Boris Berezovsky was one of the first Russian billionaires. He fled to London after falling foul of the government. In 2004, he revealed the chauffeur of a former Soviet president had been hired to kill him. He was to be stabbed in a London magistrate's court with a poisoned ink pen. This time, the killer lost his nerve. But the Russians still have to watch their backs. It's medieval, but the assassin's oldest weapon is in fashion again. Poison. A man feels the first clawing fingers of sickness. Inside his body, a deadly chemical is attacking him cell by cell.
Of course I regret what happened. I was always on the lookout for danger. We got away from bombs and assassins, even a booby-trapped plane. This was the only time we didn't make it.
He is the latest victim of poison. The future president of Ukraine. Poison can be one of the ghastliest ways to die. Dreadful agony, desperate fear. Death can take a few seconds, or the effects can last for years.
From the victim's point of view, a really bad poison is one, first of all, it kills you. But if it kills you in a slow and horrible way, well, you know, that's not very nice.
Ken Alibek spent 8 years as head of the Soviet bioweapons program. Anthrax Alibek, named after him, is the most virulent strain of weaponized anthrax on Earth.
God created the only way to, let me say, to give life. Human beings created millions of ways to take it.
Kiev's calm masks a divided Ukraine, riven by the most bitter presidential contest since it gained independence from the Soviet Union. The surprise front-runner is Viktor Yushchenko. He stands for liberalization, freedom, and democracy. Against him is Viktor Yanukovych, backed by the forces of the old guard, a member of the current government. He's supported very publicly by Russia's president, Vladimir Putin. This isn't a normal election campaign. This is war. Ukraine is convulsed with demonstrations, electoral fraud, even physical violence. Security is paramount. The Yushchenko team has 55 bodyguards, many of them ex-special services. Yevgeny Chervenyenko's in charge. In an atmosphere this tense, he needs bodyguards of his own.
We were fully prepared for poison. You see, an open attack could cause a revolution, and the people in power understood that. But poison, illness, car crashes, they could seem like accidents.
In the dirtiest political campaign in living memory, sometimes the bodyguard has to put his own life on the line.
No food reached Yushchenko untested. If we didn't have time to check it or prepare the food ourselves, I would eat it first.
On September the 5th, Yushchenko himself drops his guard. He's to have dinner with two of his most powerful opponents, the head and deputy head of the security service. Tonight's host is Volodymyr Satsuk, who combines his role as deputy security chief with a lifelong interest in poisons. Yushchenko's known these men all his political life. He's told to come alone. As a sign of good faith, he does. He's met by Satsuk's car and driven to his dacha outside Kiev.
At the meeting, he was on his own, completely unprotected.
At the dacha, with no witnesses and no bodyguards, the four men eat, drink, and talk. The meal starts with salad and cold meats. Then they move on to soup and lobster. Vodka, wine, and beer lubricate proceedings. It's the Ukrainian way. Volodya Aryav has been on the road with Yushchenko throughout the campaign. Victor's wife, Katerina, told him what happened at their apartment that night.
She kissed him on the mouth. She said later there was a metallic taste on his lips. She asked if he'd taken any medicine. He said no, he hadn't taken anything.
They went to bed, and in the morning, Viktor Yushchenko felt violently ill. Poison as a political tool is totally alien in the modern West. But in Russia, they've been poisoning each other since the Middle Ages. Whenever there's a political problem, and there doesn't seem to be any other solution, out comes the poison. And as Stalin himself put it, the man and the problem disappeared. The poster boy for 20th century poisoning is Rasputin. Monk, healer, charlatan, seducer. The Russian nobility was horrified by his influence. Even worse, there were rumors he'd been to bed with almost every woman in the royal family, and half the nobility. A group of aristocrats got together to get rid of Rasputin, and the first thing they tried was poison. They were desperate for the assassination to remain secret. They chose cyanide, the fastest acting poison they knew.
And they prefer medieval source, poison, because they realized that when they gave him poison, he immediately would be died.
Cyanide has always been the poisoner's #1 choice, a pure killing machine. In 30 seconds, it floods the body, strangling every single cell.
They will feel scary, short of oxygen, they will become muzzy, giddy, and they may just short of breath, and then they may just collapse and have a convulsion and die. So it is a very, very frightening poison.
60 years on, the CIA was using cyanide in suicide pills issued to agents, with orders to die rather than to be caught. It's fast and lethal. Tony Mendez was a senior intelligence officer with the CIA. During Vietnam, the last thing he gave one of his agents was a pen filled with cyanide. Captured in Saigon, Tony's man followed orders to the letter.
The fellow, once he was caught, was asked for his pen so he could write his confession, and he bit down on the barrel of the pen and broke the cyanide ampule. He was dead before he hit the floor.
The problem for Rasputin's would-be killers was that they'd put the poison onto some cakes. And Rasputin didn't eat sweets.
He called sweet like garbage. And when somebody presented him chocolate, he immediately represented the chocolate of to somebody from his fans. For him it was impossible to eat sweet cakes.
Impatient, one of the assassins took a pistol and shot him. Still, he didn't die. Finally, they bludgeoned him with a dumbbell and threw him into the Neva River. Even the deadliest poison's no use if the research is wrong. In his apartment in Kiev, Viktor Yushchenko wakes. He feels unwell. It seems like indigestion, but it keeps getting worse.
The next day when I saw him, he was feeling bad. He thought it was a cold or something wrong with his back from too much time in the car. He went for a sauna. Then he started vomiting terribly.
By mid-morning, the pain's intense. He feels as sick as he ever has in his life, and it's getting worse. Yushchenko wants to go on with the election campaign, but 48 hours in, his body is letting him down. There's no choice. His bodyguard won't let Yushchenko be admitted to any hospital in Ukraine.
We wouldn't even allow an injection in this country. There have been cases in the past in Ukraine where awkward politicians went into government hospitals and came out feet first.
He has to get Yushchenko to a hospital that's safe, and that means abroad. A private plane leaves at 4. Destination, Vienna.
When we landed, we were met by the doctor. When he saw him, he said to me, "Can you drive fast?" I said, "Yes."
That night, Yushchenko is only 12 hours from death. Michael Zimpfer is the doctor in charge of the case.
Well, the condition was critical. He was in a shock-like state from the abdomen.
5 major organs are close to failure. Volodya is one of the only visitors to see him.
When I entered the ward, I didn't recognize him. He was very swollen, his face like a beetroot. We said hello and I asked how he was feeling. He said that they wouldn't let him die in peace.
The doctors can see his symptoms, but they don't know what's causing them. They try on all sorts of diagnoses for size, and none of them fit.
We thought it's a regular, severe attack on the gastrointestinal system, including the internal organs. For example, a virus, or also a simple but severe food poisoning.
They pump Yushchenko full of every drug in their arsenal, fighting to control his symptoms before his organs suffer permanent, fatal damage. His condition's still critical. But politics won't wait. Presidential candidate Viktor Yushchenko ignores his doctor's advice, leaves hospital, and goes back to Ukraine. No one knows what's making him sick. The Viennese doctors suggest food poisoning. In Kiev, suspicions are darker. If he's been deliberately poisoned, no one knows what he's been given. There's cause for suspicion. The old Soviet Union, which included Ukraine, had a rap sheet for poisoning as long as your arm, and the tools for the job. When the communists came to power, poison became official government policy. Edvard Radzinsky is a prominent Russian historian who's written about Stalin and about Rasputin. He thinks secrecy came naturally to the communists, and its effects still run through Russian society and government today.
Poison means secret. Bullet, it's impossible for bullet to be secret.
Right after the revolution, Lenin himself ordered the creation of a laboratory to research new poisons. It was to be known as Lab X. This is the Lubyanka, headquarters of the KGB. Thousands of political prisoners went in. Very few of them came out alive. Just around the corner, linked to the Lubyanka by a secret tunnel, is this unassuming but heavily guarded building. This is Lab X. And it's still working today. Stanley Lekarev's life could be a summary of the history of the Russian Secret Service. After his retirement from active duty as an agent, Stanley became a lecturer at the Secret Service Academy. A medieval weapon.
Poison means secret. Bullet, it's impossible for bullet to be secret.
In the present day, in Moscow, in Kiev, even in London, people are being poisoned.
Of course, we see only the...
And be arrested and thrown in prison. His crime? To get interested in politics. But London isn't safe either. Every football ground Abramovich visits has its escape route checked. He travels by armored car. His daughters have bodyguards. Boris Berezovsky was one of the first Russian. The new Russian billionaires are the richest men in the world. Men like Roman Abramovich moved to London. Here they can buy what they like, even Chelsea Football Club. But why do they come? They're here because they feel safe. Russia is dangerous. Even the richest man in the country can... It could be the worst way to die.
The death is painful and prolonged.
Instant execution.
He was dead before he hit the floor.
A tool of spies and secret agents.
I was a KGB officer, a military officer. I had to obey orders.
Top of iceberg.